So Curtis, tell me, what is your relationship with CWA?
I'm their attorney.
And how long have you been their attorney for?
I would estimate probably 10, 12 years.
Why are you talking on their behalf today?
A couple reasons, actually. One is because there is a measure of distrust between CWA and ABC. And candidly, their view would be that ABC has misrepresented things that have occurred in Ethiopia. And so they're cautious. They're very guarded with their words. Also because they're involved in litigation with some of the matters that we've talked about, and they want to be careful about their expressions.
Why didn't they respond then, if they don't trust us? Why didn't they respond to any of our requests for interviews for the last program?
Well, there's a little bit of discrepancy as to how many requests were made. My memory is that the recitation in Flyaway Children was that there were like a half dozen or so attempts to reach them. Either those didn't get to the right person or they would dispute the number of attempts.
I actually left numerous messages, at least half a dozen messages, on either Tommy Harding's telephone message bank or Robert Harding's. I also emailed through several emails to CWA and received not a single response. Why?
Well, I thought I just tried to answer that. They would dispute what you've just said. They did get some contact from you, and at the time they weren't inclined to talk with you.
After the program went to air, they didn't respond to us. They actually launched an internet attack on the program. Why didn't they actually respond to us in any way?
Respectfully, Marianne, I differ with you. I think they served a written response.
But
and I believe,
pasted it
if
on
I might,
blogs, we received no response.
Did you get their formal response?
Through other people.
Okay, that was troubling to you?
Well, I thought it was a strange way to react. I thought, having requested numerous times for interviews with them, that they would actually respond to us.
And all I can tell you is they made a response to the piece, and that their response is publicly available, and anyone who wishes to see it certainly can.
Why did their response to the program say that Michelle Gardner never worked for CWA?
I don't think that's an accurate representation either. I think what they said was that she wasn't a staffer with CWA, and that is correct. Michelle Gardner, for about 2 years, was the caseworker for their older children's program. She was a trusted comrade with them. She did a lot of forays into Ethiopia for them and did a great job managing case files. But she was, however, an independent contractor.
She still signed CWA contracts with adopted parents.
That wouldn't surprise me.
And it says in all CWA documentation that she was a caseworker. So for all intents and purposes, for anybody who looked at those pamphlets, they would assume she worked for CWA.
And she did work for CWA, and I don't think you hear me saying that she did not. What I said was that she was a caseworker for Christian World Adoption. She handled their older children's program in Ethiopia for about 2 years, did a great job. She knows her business, she's a quality person, she's a compassionate, caring individual. They were proud to have her work for them. But if the question was whether she was on staff with them, the answer to that is no. She was an independent contractor. I can show you her 1099 form if you'd like to see it.
So is CWA responsible for her practices?
CWA is responsible for her practices as it relates to her conduct within the scope of her obligations to CWA.
So anything she does is their responsibility?
If it is within the scope of her job description to CWA. She can also have responsibilities to other agencies or other individuals that would not be part of. If the question really where you're going, if what you want to ask me is, was she acting for CWA when she went to Kambata, the answer is yes.
So explain to me what was going on in Kambata.
Sure. If you don't mind, because I think it frames it in a more intelligent way, let me talk to you about kind of the context of Ethiopian adoptions as a whole. And you and I were chatting about this earlier, but for the benefit of your viewers, let me rehearse it. There are really two components to international adoption, at least as it works here from the States. One component is a child being declared an orphan, and there is a technical definition for an orphan. You can find that the State Department and the Immigration and Nationality Act both defines that very particularly. So the first stage is a child being deemed an orphan and being deemed adoptable. That is not what CWA does. That is not what any adoption agency does. In fact, the Ethiopian government specifically reserves that right to themselves. What I'm saying is only the Ethiopian government can determine that a child is an orphan and is adoptable. So the typical scenario is that a caregiver, someone who finds a child, or a sole surviving parent who can't care for a child, will go to the local Kabli office. That's kind of like a county office. Imagine you have counties in Australia, I don't know. But they go to their local community office and they say, I can't care for this child. As part of that process, they have to bring in 3 witnesses who swear to the local court that they cannot provide for that child. So they have to present people that actually know something of this child's socioeconomic background. After that process is complete, that Kabli, that local court, will make a recommendation to MOA, the Ministry of Women's Affairs, and to a state level, we'll call it court, and the process is repeated there. The process actually gets repeated a 3rd time at the federal level in Ethiopia. Once that is completed, before a visa can be issued for the child, the U.S. government investigates, first of all, to make sure that adoption is legal according to Ethiopian law, and then to make sure that the child is in fact an orphan according to U.S. standards. Typically, that process of a child being declared an orphan and being declared adoptable is done long before CWA gets involved in the picture. CWA's role is to find caring, capable families and to link them to this already identified pool of orphans and adoptable children. Now,
Why though? Why did we see Michelle Gardner in a village asking families if they would like their child adopted to a good American family, and if they didn't, to take their children away? Why did we see that?
Well, you saw that because the Kambata experience was a unique one. Kambata, as you know, if you've been there, is one of the poorest regions in Ethiopia. The local officials in Kambata were having an overwhelming problem with the number of children who were not cared for. And there are no orphanages in Kambata. And so the local government sent out a cry for help. They asked for any aid agency to come down to assist with the placement of these children. That invitation was made to an orphanage in Addis Ababa called Gelgala. Gelgala partnered with CWA. CWA looks for caring families for these orphans and these adoptable children in Ethiopia. So CWA traveled with Gelgala representatives to Kambata at the request of Kambata officials.
Well, that is not the story that we understand.
I
The story
understand.
that we understand is that CWA actually paid local police and local government officials to organise a village to come together, and that those people really had no understanding of what adoption meant.